Hi guys, welcome to Garden on a Hill, where we talk about easy home gardening. My name is Vin, and in this channel I talk about things that made my life easy in the garden. In today's episode, spring is slowly creeping in from winter, seeds are being started, and seedlings are coming out. So look at these. I think this video is going to be dedicated to how I start my seedlings. Everyone has their own way. This is my way for myself that hopefully you can learn from. And then towards the end, I want to make sure I share who the winner is for the 2022 summer seed giveaways. These are non-invasive seeds, of course. That's important. Please Google invasive seeds in your areas before you plant something. But this is for the winner towards the end. And make sure, if you are watching my videos, you are a full-time employee and you have a lot of things to do, this is a channel for you where I show my vegetables, lawn, ornamentals, and also product reviews. If you are into that, please subscribe to this page and hit that bell button so anytime I upload something new, you get notified. Let's go ahead and look at starting seeds and also the seedlings. The first thing you have to do is select your seeds. If you are like me and you have a ton of seeds, it's going to take you the whole day to select what you want to grow. But keep in mind, grow something that you like eating, grow something that you love growing. And then from that selection, that's going to dictate if you need an indoor seed starter setup or you can direct sow outside. Of course, you can always buy a seedling from a store, but this is about starting your seedlings. So once you've decided, just say tomato, peppers, or eggplants, you're definitely going to need an indoor seed starter. Or another method is you can grow it at your windowsill and then bring it outside every day, but you're not going to have much success as to a controlled environment like this. We can definitely make another video about this semi-insulated indoor seed starter setup that I have, because it's so good. I tell you, they have accelerated my growing. But anyway, that's the first step. Select your seeds, and then let's group those seeds. Let me show you how I group those seeds to become seedlings.
Indoor seed starters are recommended for summer seeds because they typically need a soil temperature higher than 65 degrees Fahrenheit. For some spring seeds, you may be able to direct sow them outside.
So after I select my seeds, I typically group them into 3: bucket 1, bucket 2, and bucket 3. Each different grouping corresponds to the amount of time that they need to germinate. Starting with 1, these are the ones that take the longest to germinate from seed to seedling, around 2 to 4 weeks. Bucket 2 is your mid-range, week and a half to 2 weeks. And then bucket 3 would be the ones that are the quickest, 1 week or less, and you have seeds already germinated. Typically, sometimes in 3 days, you already have seedlings coming out for bucket 3. Now this is how I group them together. So I want to make sure I plant bucket 1 in a seed tray together or in groups of seed trays. Same thing with bucket 2 and 3. Now how are you going to know how long will it take to germinate? Well, your friend Google is always going to be there, and the seed packets is another way to tell it. They will usually tell you how many days it takes for this to germinate, and then of course experience. I just know for a fact that this is how I group my seeds, because on a yearly basis that's how I do it. And starting with bucket 1, you want to make sure this takes an extra step. You have to soak these seeds. What does that mean? That means you have to take the seed and put it inside a paper or a wet towel or anything that has moisture, because it has a hard shell that you want to soften and help the seed grow for a couple of days, about 3 to 5 days, before they can break through this hard shell. And this gives you more success. You don't have to do soaking, but it just gives you more success for these seeds. 2 to 4 weeks, you need to soak it. After you soak it, you put it in a towel or a wet paper, put it in a Ziploc bag, and then put it under a TV box or a laptop or a heat mat to help it come out. As soon as something comes out, a little root comes out, you can put it on your seed starter. So bucket 1 will include that extra step of soaking. And in this grouping, what I typically do as seeds would be, the most common would be tomatoes. Peppers also go into this group. Eggplants. Anything that is typically warm loving goes in this group. Asian vegetables like bitter melon, and then of course your loofah or Chinese okra. There's many more, of course, but these are just the most common ones that I use. And for this bucket, you can also direct seed it, but my recommendation is do not direct sow, no direct sow, because it will take you a while in case a bird gets it or a vermin gets it. 2 to 4 weeks is a long time, and at that point it will already be too late for you to catch up with the season, and you still have to wait for the ground to at least be 70 degrees or higher. So that's bucket 1. Bucket 2, the mid-range ones, a lot of grouping falls under this, and the biggest difference between 1 and 2, aside from the time, is you do not need to soak. No soak for these seeds. And you don't need to, because by experience and also by literature, if you read these, they will rot if you soak them. Things that fall in here would be your squash, zucchinis, which is a squash, cucumbers. You can also do your okras here if you want, and then of course your watermelon or cantaloupe can be here as well. So with these groupings, you can just directly put them in the seed starter in your setup and start it, and you can actually direct sow these. It's fine. I've done that as well. The only difference is if you direct sow them, again, you have a chance for them to fail if it gets attacked by a pest or an animal or any other thing in the bed. You have pill bugs, they may eat it. But you can direct sow it. Given the right conditions, it will succeed. I have done that as well. But if you want to start it in the seed starter, you group them in bucket 2. Now bucket 3, the fast growing ones, will be very similar to bucket 2. They're just much quicker. You also do not need to soak this because they will rot. And seeds that fall under here, radish can actually fall under here, but I do not put my radishes in the seed starter because they are way too fast and they do not want to get disturbed once they sprout. So things that fall under this grouping would be the beans, any of all your 20 different beans that you have, regular Kentucky Wonder beans, Asian long beans. Beans will fall in here. Bok choy will also be here, or your Asian greens or mustards will all fall here. You do not need to do a seed starter for this, but I do seed start some. I also direct sow some. Direct sow is more compatible for this grouping, but if you have no luck, if you have a lot of pests outside, a lot of animals, you bucket them into bucket 3. Just to put it in context why it's important to bucket the seeds together, to the left here is a group of bucket 1, 2 different types of eggplant, the green knight and the purple round. Bucket 1 takes about 2 to 4 weeks to germinate. Bucket 3 is King Kong, which grows very quickly. By the way, it's illegal to have King Kong in several states. I think Arizona, California, Hawaii, and Florida. You cannot grow this because it becomes invasive in your area. Just FYI. But anyway, look at this. These 2 different types of eggplants are so small compared to the King Kong. So if you have this from bucket 3 in your bucket 1 group of seedlings, this will always overpower these smaller seedlings. And what's going to happen is it's going to block its light, and it's going to take more water. And also by the time you need to fertilize this isn't really ready to fertilize yet. So that's why it's important to have them coordinate. As you can see, both of these two different eggplants here are growing at the same rate. You want to make sure you group them as much as possible to the same rate that they're growing. So when they're ready to take out, like right now I'm hardening them off. These actually came out a week and a half earlier than this. So you can't take these outside yet when these were ready to take outside. So that's why you need to bucket them. So this is how I put my seed starting mix in my seed trays. I make sure that I buy a good seed starting potting mix. To be honest, if you have the Miracle Grow seed starting potting mix or the Jiffy seed starting mix in your area, I'd rather go with this one, not just because it's organic, it's also because there's not a lot of compost or like bark in the peat. This one has a lot of peat. But anyway, that's just my preference. But what you do is you fill up a bowl and make sure you mix it with water and pre-moisten the seed starting mix. I like to use my hands because I like to feel the wetness of the mix. And I just put water and start to mix it. Okay. When do I know when to stop? When the consistency of it feels like a brownie, you're good to go. Make sure I evenly mix it. Once it's evenly mixed, it's going to feel like this. When you press it together, it clumps together. That's a good sign that it's mixed. And then you just put the soil in one of the cells and make sure you pat it to where it's a little compact and it takes the shape of the cell. That's the perfect way to fill up the cells. In this case, if you do it that way, when you put the seed, it's going to have the porosity and then also the water retention. It also has the shape. You don't want to have air pockets inside it. So when you push the seed pocket out, the seed tray, you can see, you can push the whole block out easily. Now I'm ready to plant my seeds. I already have a prepared 8-cell seed tray here with labels. I'll have 2 different squashes and then 2 different watermelons. That actually falls under bucket 2 on the way I plant my seeds. A week and a half to 2 weeks, I'm expecting them to grow. So there's going to be 4 different types of seeds here. I'm using the labels because they are just left over from a stack of labels I have. If you have the Burpee seed starter, you can look at it from our previous video. I'm going to put a link here. There's grid numbers on this seed starter and you can just use that paper. I'm just using this because I'm trying to finish them off. But anyway, the first thing you want to do is to poke holes through this. And what I do is I usually use my tweezers to poke through the holes of the suggested depth of whichever seed you need to place. In my case, I believe it's just 1/2 inch for these seeds, watermelon and squash. They're about the same. You don't need to use this. I only have tweezers in hand because sometimes I use the tweezers for small seeds like a tomato to place it in the holes. But since I already have it here, it's convenient for me to do it. And what I do is I just put at least 2 seeds each for the 2 type. So I'll put 4 seeds for the crimson sweet, 2 on each, and then cover it up. And then it's already wet. We've already pre-wetted the mix, but I just typically go through it with 1 tablespoon of water on top just to let things settle. And that's how I do it. So again, this is going to be bucket 2. If you have a bucket 1, you're going to have to unfold all those soaked seeds that you have, and you kind of do the same thing. Bucket 3 would be the same thing. It's just a direct sow, same method. Just refer to the seed packet on the depth of what you need for each seed. One thing that I do want to point out is the size of the seeds when you're putting them here. Typically I would put in at least 2 a cell if the seeds are small enough. Like this Table Queen acorn squash from Fairy Moors. Look at the seeds, they're tiny. So I typically just put 2. I put 2 as much as I can, so just in case one seed fails, you still have another seed to depend on, and you can always just thin them out. But I've been trying new seeds, and this one is a Korean brand seed. I actually got this from a Korean supermarket. And look at the seeds for this summer squash. They are so big. So I actually just used one. Now, just in case you are like me trying new stuff and you find something, make sure you also kind of adjust depending on the seed size that you have. And now you can place the seed tray in your indoor seed starter setup. Yours may be different than this, but this is my setup. I have a first top shelf and then a second bottom shelf. The top shelf has a heat mat that keeps everything around 80 to 97 whole time it's in here. So I keep it there, I plop in that tray, and then the thing that I want to watch out for is first the light. The light I keep on for at least 12 to 16 hours. I want to make sure it's all lit as soon as a leaf comes out, so the leaf or the seedling doesn't try to reach out for the light and get stemmy. I also have a little fan here that just keeps blowing something very mildly so the mold doesn't grow on the top. And then also, do not overwater it. Let it dry out until everything at the top becomes like a dry peat moss texture. Once it dries up at the top, put water at the bottom, maybe about ½ an inch, and then let it set, let it soak it up. Once the top turns dark brown, dump the excess water from the bottom. That's how you do it. Once it sprouts, you put it here at the bottom shelf where you see all my seedlings. This bottom shelf does not have the heat mat, but this area keeps it around, I think, 78 to about 85, depending on the day. That's how I typically do it. Again, this is a more semi-insulated seed starter setup, and I found it to be successful for me. We'll make another video about this one. Just a little segue for my previous viewers and my new subscribers. I'm going to put a link to my indoor seed starter setup here that I first bought from Tractor Supply. I used that as a greenhouse kit outside. It's actually built right there. And also I moved that inside before as my indoor seed starting kit. Yes, you can start with this. This is a much easier setup for you to start with if you are starting late in the season. The reason why I put this permanently here, because I learned to love it when I use it as a trellis for my beans. So the beans I would just plant there and they would grow around the two greenhouse kits. And before summer hits, I actually put the tarp on and I use that as an actual greenhouse. I can start to grow my beans in there with bigger seed starting mixes or bigger pots. I actually advise, I know I have squash in there in my seedlings. You can grow those on bigger pots. I use squash seeds in that seed starter because I can use bigger pots there. So what I've been using is that for that matter. But I built the new semi-insulated seed starting rack because I want something that's close that I can access inside of my house. And I also keep that door open all the time. So you're wondering, why are you building an insulated one? Because I keep that door open all the time and it gets cold and I don't want the seeds to get cold. But that's a little segue. Anyway, let's go back into the video. So that's where we're going to stop the seed starting when it emerges, because I think at this point that's the only thing you need to know when you're growing the seeds that I'm going to send. And of course, we can do more detailed videos for the other phases once the seeds come out. You're here in my front yard garden. My radishes are actually looking great. They've already come up and I'm excited. I'm excited for them. But anyway, speaking of excitement, who won? I'm flashing your name here. Here you go. And make sure, Rosemary, you go to my Instagram page. It's going to be Garden on a Hill. It's garden _on_hill. I'm gonna flash it here. Go to Instagram, contact me there. I will send you the seeds. And I think I will also take this time for general knowledge for everyone. If you are buying seeds, there are certain seeds that are illegal in your area. Make sure that you are buying seeds that are non-invasive. There are certain U.S. continental seeds that are pretty much non-invasive everywhere, but there are certain ones, especially Asian varieties, that can go invasive in your area, like that King Kong that I talked about earlier. So make sure if you are buying your seeds, you're helping the environment by not spreading anything that is invasive. Make sure anything that you buy is something that doesn't scatter everywhere. Okay? But that is it. That is the video for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, happy gardening. We're going to drop at 30s tonight, so good luck with the spring. See you later.